Brackets are out, folks. The Longhorns are in March Madness under Rodney Terry for the second straight year, earning a 7 seed. Jason, I don't know if we were expecting that, but we'll talk about that and more here on the Hook 'em Hoos podcast today, brought to you by the Field of 68. My name is Tommy Yarrish, alongside Jason Kinander. Jason, good to see you, my man. You're at the Big 12 tournament for TSTV Sports. Absolutely crushed it with coverage. I think you might have spoken to every single player and coach humanly possible, which was great to see over Twitter while I was sailing away in the Gulf of Mexico, lackadaisically. You know, you're a grinder. I guess I'm not, but very, very good to reunite with you here back on land and look at this bracket with you. You know, you and I were talking about Texas as like an 8 seed or a 9 seed. We were looking at, like Florida Atlantic being the first round team. Maybe it's
Oof.
Utah State or Nebraska. I think those were some of the teams floating around. And I'm watching the reveal go through on CBS. Shout out to our guy Seth Davis. And all these 8-9 games go by, and FAU was the other team that we talked about, Jason, and there's no Texas. I'm like, man, are they really going to make Texas a 7 seed? And sure enough, they did, making Texas a 7 seed. They will face the winner of Colorado State and Virginia in the first round. Jason, your initial thoughts on Texas's placement here?
Fantastic draw. Absolutely fantastic draw for the Longhorns. First off, playing against a winner of a playing game in the first round, especially on Thursday. That's a quick turnaround from Tuesday. Texas is going to be well rested, which they play well when they're well rested. So that's pretty good for them. And then the two teams who they could be playing, that's a fantastic matchup. Colorado State is a smaller team. Isaiah Stevens has a lot of similarities to Max Asmus. They also have Meek Clifford, who is the guard, good rebounding guard, big-bodied. But Tyrese Hunter can match up pretty well against him. And then Joel Scott, who's a forward who shoots the ball pretty well. But Colorado State and Virginia both don't shoot the ball well from three. And so this isn't going to be a game where Texas gets lit up. And that is a really welcome sign because I like Texas more in a game that's going to be sitting in, both teams have point totals in the 60s and they're kind of grinding it out. And the other good thing is neither Virginia nor Colorado State are the most physical teams. And Texas struggles to defend without fouling when playing against physical teams. And especially with what happened against Kansas State with Dessou fouling out and Brock Cunningham fouling out and everyone being in foul trouble, like that's something that's super important. And so I think that Texas matches up well against both teams. Personally, I hope that they face Virginia because I would love to see the Caden Shedrick revenge game. And I just think that, Virginia doesn't have a go-to scorer. They don't have dynamic guard play, and they don't have a true big. And so while they are a great defensive team, Texas blew the brakes off of a similarly constructed defensive team in Texas Tech just a month ago. And so that's my initial thoughts on Texas's beating. Now I want to hear yours.
Yeah, Jason, I think we agree for the most part. I am a little bit concerned with how good Virginia is defensively, just because if it's a game where Texas just completely is out of rhythm on offense, like they have been at many points this season, and I think something to keep an eye on is how Dylan Dessou has played the last few games. Remember, he got a little bit banged up towards the end of the regular season and had a minimal impact in the first round of the Big 12 tournament. So if there's something that we're not really seeing there, that obviously is huge for the Longhorns, regardless of who they play in the first round. But Virginia, third in the country in scoring defense behind only Houston and St. Mary's. And Colorado State, 74th seems like a big jump, but that's really not terribly far behind if we're looking at the big picture. I'm sure that list shortens up when it comes to actual tournament teams. So I'm sure they're closer than, it may seem. But I agree with you, though. I think Virginia is the more preferable matchup, if you will, just because the Cavaliers are a team that a lot of people didn't have even making the tournament, Jason. And it was kind of a shocker to even see them get into a first four game. You take a look at some of the teams that get left out, like Oklahoma and Seton Hall, which I think the Big East in general was just kind of robbed of several spots there. You can make a
Yeah.
case for Seton Hall. You can make a case for St. John's. And then, of course, America's team, Indiana State. But nonetheless, you can't complain. Virginia's in. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Tony Bennett is a fantastic head coach, and they have such a good track record that, and they've done so well in March that it's hard to leave a program like that out of the tournament. And so that's the part that worries me a little bit. I think Tony Bennett's a fantastic coach, so he's going to have a great game plan
Mm,
ready to go.
mm.
And he does good in March, and that's what matters. Nothing else matters from the regular season. Like everybody is 0-0 starting now, Jason. So nothing matters. And sure,
Yep.
everything from the
Nothing.
regular season,
Nothing.
everything from the regular season obviously plays a factor into this. But you take a look at teams that just are completely different in March. I think Virginia is one of those teams, regardless of how they've played all
Yeah.
season. And, for Colorado State, we mentioned how good they were defensively. They've got some really impressive wins. Beat Creighton early in the season. They beat a
Mm.
really, really, really good Nevada
But they
team
haven't
two
played their
games
best
ago.
basketball in 3 months. That they peaked in December.
That's true. That's the counterpoint to that. And so I still think, Virginia is the better matchup. And something that caught my eye, Jason, I don't know if you saw this. Friend of the program, Eric Henry, was at the
I
little
caught
watch
this.
party for
I caught this.
Texas. And
Yeah. Yeah.
as soon as the broadcast showed that the Longhorns were playing either Virginia or Colorado State in round one, you kind of saw Caden Shedrick's head kind of just like snap around back at his teammates, like, "Oh, really?" And then he kind of like put his head in his arms. It seems like he really wants that game, and the way that he's been playing. And I know, Jason, you're the conductor of the Caden Shedrick train here the last couple months, but the way he's been playing, man, if that's a get back game for him, and he has some dog in him for that game, and gives you, like 10 to 15 points somewhere within that range, you got to be feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Caden Shedrick, I mean, with a little motivation, as long as he plays controlled, foul trouble has been an issue throughout the year, and so you obviously want him to stay on the court. But I talked to Caden after Texas lost to K State, and he told me that he's been really looking forward to the tournament because he has a bad taste left in his mouth from last year when Furman hit that 3-pointer with 3 seconds remaining, and there's the viral picture of him with his hands on his head at center court, like he wants the opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament again. He's going to get it potentially against his former team, and he doesn't speak very highly of Virginia or of that coaching staff. So I'm really excited for the potential of that matchup. My one last note on the first round. A big takeaway here for me is that Texas avoids Indiana State. Had Indiana State been in the first four, not only would that be a tough matchup for Texas, but that would galvanize the entire country against Texas. Like, as if people already need reason to pick against Texas, root against Texas, and had Robbie Avila and the Indiana State Sycamores rolled in to face Texas. Like, that would have been a nightmare. Not to mention, it would have been huge Northern Iowa vibes from 2016 with Wes Washburn and Paul Jesperson. And so, thank God Texas avoided Northern Iowa. The last thing that I really want to talk about, because this is our rapid reaction episode, later this week before the first round starts, we will do a full preview where we predict the score of the game and kind of dive a little bit more into it. The obvious storyline that sticks out too when you look at the bracket is the likelihood of Texas facing Rick Barnes in Tennessee in the second round, which I would say for any other sport, former Texas coach facing off, you're like, oh, like I'm kind of worried about that. But for Rick Barnes, who doesn't have the best track record in March, whose Tennessee Volunteers just got absolutely walloped in the first game that they played in the SEC tournament, this is a good look for Texas. This is a good look. It's going to be a great storyline. Rick Barnes obviously didn't have the most positive ending at Texas. They didn't end on the best of terms, and so I'm excited to see the potential for that to happen. Or maybe Texas plays Colorado State in the first round and St. Peter's in the second round. What do you think?
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are now partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 all through the NCAA tournament. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not that bet hits. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you get up to $1,500 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we do have some fun stuff coming for the conference tournaments and especially for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and what I love the most, a nice parlay boost for anything you could possibly imagine betting on in the NCAA tournament, from odds and getting an at-large bid to Final Four futures to the highest seed to make to the Sweet 16. I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet for your March Madness needs. So go download the BetMGM app, use the code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request: the best way to support the Field of 68 and our content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod, like and share the YouTube videos, tell your friends about us. It helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, one more note on the potential matchup with Virginia here. One thing that I just glanced at and made me feel even better about a potential matchup there, Jason, what's the one thing that we've harped on with this Texas team is their defense. All season long, they are what they are. Well, Virginia offensively is also what they are. They are 344th in team offense this season. Do you want to know who's ahead of them, Jason? Cal Poly is ahead of them. Loyola, Maryland is ahead of them. And DePaul is ahead of Virginia in scoring offense this season. I mean, Tony Bennett's a great coach, but come on, man, what are we doing here? So that is.
I'm glad we agree on the Virginia point. I'm glad we agree on that point.
That's a staggering number. What I do disagree with you on is the Rick Barnes matchup. I think if they were to face Tennessee in the second round, that the Volunteers would just straight up run away with that. But you and I were talking about this earlier. They have to beat St. Peter's first. Like that's not an easy out for Rick Barnes and company. And like you mentioned, especially with his track record in March. So there's no easy games in the NCAA tournament, and
nope.
Tennessee would have two hard ones to start off if they beat St. Peter's and if Texas wins their first round game. I know we'll do predictions on the next episode. But early thoughts on this region, or at least this bottom half of it, Jason. I think Creighton wins it. I think Creighton gets to the Sweet 16 pretty easily, and then let's see, in the Elite Eight, they'd probably, well, I guess I can't even say they'd probably face Purdue because we don't even know with Purdue anymore. So I think Creighton makes it out of the Midwest, Jason.
All I'm gonna say, don't sleep on TCU. Don't sleep on them.
I know. I saw them right below Purdue. I was like, oh boy, Matt Painter's got a tough one in round 2 if they get out of that.
People don't realize there are a lot of TCU fans in the Midwest. Like, obviously, the game being in Indy is going to make it almost 100% Purdue fans. So, like, there will be TCU fans there. A lot of TCU alumni live in Chicago and the Chicagoland area, my father included. So maybe I'll try and convince him to go to that game. The intriguing part, the most intriguing part of the region for me, actually, are the 3, 4, and 5 seeds first round games. I think that Creighton and Akron is a really intriguing matchup. I like Akron. Akron's 3 leading scorers are all fifth-year seniors who have played at least 4 years with the program. That is like the perfect recipe for a Cinderella team in March. Now, the actual matchup against Creighton isn't great. If Creighton has like an off shooting night, then maybe Akron will advance, but otherwise probably not. Kansas, if they're not healthy, they're in trouble against Samford. Absolutely, they're in trouble. I really like this Samford team. They rebound really well. They shoot the shit out of the ball. They play awesome basketball. And I hope Kansas is at full strength because you want to see the best players in the NCAA tournament. But if they're not, that's going to be one hell of a game. And then finally, Gonzaga and McNeese State. That's going to be a fantastic game. I think that this is the most vulnerable Gonzaga has been going into March in 10 years, and they're facing legitimately the hottest mid-major team in the country in McNeese State. Will Wade, I'm so excited to watch this game. So excited to watch it. And I don't know who I'm going to pick to win the Midwest region yet. You know, I like Tennessee actually because I agree with you that the on paper matchup with, you know, like who's going to guard Dalton Connect. Zakai Ziegler is going to lock up Max Ace. Tennessee's bigs play really controlled basketball. Like, that's not the best of matchups from a basketball standpoint for Texas. It's more of like the idea, the storyline of facing Rick Barnes, and then, you know, whatever happens, happens, because the storyline kind of takes over at that point. That being said, I like either Creighton or Tennessee, but if Kansas is fully healthy, they could have an easy path to the Elite Eight, or to the Sweet 16, pardon, because I think McNeese will beat Gonzaga. And so they would have to get past Samford and then McNeese, and Kansas at full strength. You know, who guards Hunter Dickinson from a mid-major school? Like, I just, I think that Kansas is in good shape if they're healthy, but it's March. The Midwest region's wild, man. I'm so excited for this.
It's a great region.
So
It's a really good region. I will say, if Tennessee plays Texas, you ask who's going to guard Dalton Connect. Nobody. I think Dalton Connect has a good chance to shatter records if he plays Texas in round two. Just to be completely honest with you,
it's gonna be like this generation, like Jimmer Fredette game or Steph Curry. Dalton Connect against Texas, like 45, 10, and 5.
he literally might, and I don't think that's even too far of a stretch considering how well Texas, well, the lack of how well Texas has played defensively this season. But I think we're getting a little too far ahead of ourselves here to start. Texas still has to win the first round game before they even can think about Tennessee, and they've got two, viable teams to consider here in round one. But I completely agree with you with Virginia being, the team that you want to face. It is hard to say that considering how well they've done in March and knowing how good Tony Bennett is as a coach. But if we're looking at how Virginia has performed up to this point, they have not played good basketball whatsoever. And you could argue that Texas, aside from the Kansas State game to open the Big 12 tournament, has been playing some of their better basketball. They've found their stride offensively. They've been finding a little bit of defense here and there. So, look, if Rodney Terry is able to get out of the first round, I think that's a win in this tournament. And if he's able to get out of the second round with a win too, oh boy, he's going to shut a lot of people up. With this roster, he is going to shut a lot of people up.
Not to get too ahead of ourselves, but my last thought here, and I hope that we're in a place where we talk about this matchup on Friday, previewing it going into Saturday. But just knee-jerk reaction, if Rodney Terry were to beat Tennessee in the second round of the tournament, that would be his signature win at Texas. And that would be one of the most signature moments in the recent history of the basketball program. Absolutely. To knock off a former coach, a legendary coach at the school, like, it would be fantastic.
They could lose to Creighton by 50 in the next game, and it wouldn't matter. Like that.
It would matter.
Well, okay, maybe a little bit, but that's how monumental of a win that would be for Texas if Rodney Terry was able to beat Rick Barnes in round two, even with Rick Barnes' poor success in March. We were wondering halfway through the season if Texas was even going to be in the tournament, and now they're a 7 seed. And if they knock off Tennessee, that's gonna make a lot of people be very quiet. And I'm gonna start posting the Gustavo Fring memes again when and if Texas starts winning these tournament games as an ode to Rodney Terry's partner in crime.
It's the best time of the year, Tommy. It really is, and it was awesome getting back in.
We say it's hard, not to get too far ahead of ourselves. It's hard not to. This is just so exciting, and we could sit here, and I know the Field of 68 last night was doing like a 7-hour show live
5 to 12.
That's unbelievable. When we're so lucky to work alongside these talented guys.
Yeah.
Jason, you and I could probably break down each and every single one of these games for the next 7 hours too, and we'd have a blast doing it. But we'll stick to Texas for now. They await the winner of Colorado State and Virginia in the first four before they go ahead and take the first round on the 21st or 22nd. I don't recall off the top of my head which day it is just yet. But nonetheless, like Jason
21st.
said, we'll have a 21st. Thank you. Nonetheless, we'll have an episode for you before that game when Texas finds out who their opponent will be. Jason, great catching up with you as always. And for all of you tuning in with us, thanks so much for doing so. Be sure to check back in with us in a couple more days when the Longhorns find out their round one opponent. Until then, for Jason Kinander, I'm Tommy Yarrish. We'll see you guys next time.